So, hello everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Dee here at Submit.com, Head of Growth, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Head of Marketing at Legoland Malaysia Resort, Zeeshan Khan. Hello, thank you for joining me today, Zeeshan.
Hi Dee, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm absolutely delighted, as I said, to have you here. You have been using Submit for just over a year now, in particular for the Legoland Schools Challenge. So I'm very excited to hear a bit more about that. And if you want to just tell me a little bit about yourself, about your role at Legoland Malaysia Resort, and then tell us about the Schools Challenge and what brought you to Submit.com in the first place.
Sure, great. Thanks, Steve, for this opportunity to share, how we've been using Submit.com in the last 1 year. So just a quick bit about myself. I won't bore you with too many details about what I do, but I'm the head of marketing at Legoland Malaysia Resort. And in a way, just putting, in a short way, my role is about, looking at all our paid, owned, earned, and shared media remit. And of course, there are all the other bits around e-commerce and research and, CRM as well that I handle. So we pretty much have an in-house kind of team. So, our media buying, our creative services, we're all using in-house resources. So we have a relatively decent sized team. And of course, for us, the entire piece, apart of course from making sure that the brand comes alive in so many ways, is to be as agile as possible. So, and from that point on, if I can just, kind of talk about the school challenge, because there is a bit of history on the school challenge. And how this started off was back in 2020 after the pandemic, right? And of course, when things were closed, we had to shut down like a lot of other businesses. We did an online Lego challenge. So this was, of course, this idea was a brainwave, I think, from the Lego marketing team. And they shared it with all the Legolands, and all the Legolands adopted them in their own way. So we turned that challenge, it was called a 30-day building challenge, Lego challenge. We turned that into a day-by-day kind of approach, and we created a bit of suspense around it. So we would only reveal the challenge on that day, and then they had 1 day to build, and then 1 day to submit, and so on. So we used that, and we saw that the level of engagement on that grew like astronomically. It was so high. And we were getting tons of entries, and of course, not just from Malaysia where we are based, but we're quite close to Singapore as well. So Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, even other countries, they all jumped onto this. And I think parents saw this as an opportunity for their kids to engage in some, constructive building, of course. And then also, the challenges were interesting. They weren't about building just like a car or something. It was like build a car, that can fly, or build, a spaceship that is a certain shape and so on. So it was a nice hybrid way of, getting the kids, rolling about in their imagination. And then fast forward 2 years later, when we started to open up, and of course, the pandemic turned into an endemic in Malaysia. We kind of had an idea that we wanted to engage school children, right? So, and school children is probably, they're one of the, I would say, an important market for us, because, obviously we want every child to come to Legoland and experience, all the epic Lego builds, all the larger than life stuff that's there at the resort. So we reached out, and we worked with a few stakeholders, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Tourism in Malaysia. And we came up with an idea for doing a challenge that would be participated in by school groups. So we kind of formalized it and said, okay, this is a chance for kids to really come up and, show their creativity, show their skills and so on. So 2022 was the first year we did the challenge. It was very Malaysia focused because, in like the borders were still closed at that point in time. But of course, we wanted to stretch it throughout Malaysia, and we did that. And we got a pretty good response on that challenge. We got approximately close to like 200, mid 250 entries from schools all over Malaysia. And these were like large groups. So each group was like anywhere from 10 to 14 kids. So that was the precursor for, and then we, when we saw that the response, that excitement, and then, we gave them a thing, they did the bit, and then for the prize giving, or let's say the grand finale, they had to come to Legoland. So the excitement, getting their teachers, their colleagues, their class fellows in, it was very high, vibrant environment, and of course the kids were, they were overjoyed. Of course, the winners and the ones who were runner-ups and so on. So we said, fine, we got that format, and now let's tweak it to make it even more interesting and really raise up the challenge level of the challenge as well. So 2023, which was last year, we said, okay, let's take this beyond Malaysia. So we said we'll make it more of a Southeast Asian competition as much as possible. I mean, of course, we do realize that it's a bit hard for schools outside Malaysia who are far away to logistically take part in the challenge, because they have to come down to the resort. Their entry has to be displayed to the public. So that's the bit. But then we did get entries from Singapore. We got entries from Indonesia. We even had a winner from the Philippines, which is a few hours away by flight. So it was quite interesting. And I mean, for us, the intention actually was quite clear, right? We know that this ties back to our DNA of, how we are enabling learning through play. So the challenge is actually a manifestation of that. So that's not a short history, but
no, that's wonderful.
Pretty, and like explained out history of the school challenge.
No, it's fantastic how it's one small idea that, to keep kids busy maybe during the whole pandemic. I mean, it makes sense. I have crates of Lego here at home, so it was a lifesaver for many people all over the world. But for it to grow into such a huge event, such a successful event, again, not just in Malaysia, but all over. And in terms of the difference then, when talking about Submit, I suppose, how 2023 differed in how you accepted the applications and managed them, especially now if you're looking at over 250 possible applications from all over. So how did it work?
Right. So 2023 was, like I said, we scaled up. And of course, what happened as a result of that scale up was that even the number of entries increased by almost 100%, right? So we doubled the entries in 2023. And then, I mean, when we were, because we had a phase, like when we kick off the challenge, we have a registration phase, because we want the groups, like to kind of assemble themselves, get the teachers involved, because the teachers have to be registered along with the team. That was like a mandatory part of the process. And of course, it takes a bit of time, group dynamics, who's going to contribute and so on. I mean, we don't get involved in that. I mean, the kids can definitely figure that out. So, I mean, once we kicked that off, we saw the number of registrations. We were like, this time around, we actually have a ton of entries in the future coming up. And our experience in 2022, again, I mean, no disrespect to, what we were doing before, but we were using Google Forms, right? And of course, it works great in the sense that, we got those entries. We learned a bit, on, okay, how do we match that up? How do we get them to, we even upgraded our, our Google OneDrive of sorts, because there was like tons of videos and pictures coming in. So we did what was necessary. But of course, maybe, in hindsight, there was a lot of logistical and, pretty operational, like mundane level work of downloading stuff, putting them in folders, a lot of time taken up, the team's time taken up, which I think in a way is not great, because, you have less time to deal with the other logistics of the event and the marketing per se and so on. So, I mean, in 2023, we're like, okay, we've got a lot more registrations. We've got a lot more entries coming up. So let's do some soul searching and some Google search to see what kind of solutions is out there. So I did that. I'm not just taking credit for it, but I really wanted this to be like, more seamless for us as a team. There were a few platforms that came up. Submit.com was fun. I won't take the name of the others. A couple of them I've forgotten as well. And, we reached out, we did some comparisons, we did some checks. And again, I think when we reached out to the team at Submit, I think it was, the responses were pretty instantaneous. And I think the proof of concept was also designed quite fast, right? So I know I'm having a conversation with you, but this is reality, and this is exactly what happened. So I think we were able to show that internally, hey, we've got this platform. The only challenge, the only, I would say, the downside last year was that we weren't able to get the registrations done on the platform. So there was a bit of a crossover, because the registration still happened, on the other form solution. So we use that to then send emails and so on. But then I think post that, sending the email to the team leads or the teachers who took part for their teams, right? And I think that process was quite quick. So we managed to get that the entry submissions and the creation of the accounts on Submit.com for each team quite fast. So we were pleasantly surprised. And then even later on, I think when we were submitting, when we were checking out the entries, I think the way they were structured, I think the kids got a better chance of kind of explaining their entry better, even doing the layout better, because it's quite different, like, I mean, if you ask me to write on a blackboard, right? I mean, with the chalk and all, I mean, right? It's going to be a very different experience versus me typing it out, right? So in a way, I think our solution was a bit antiquated because it wasn't, it didn't even look, that user-friendly, basically it was just a form at the end of the day. But this one looked more like a microsite, more mirrored what our brand website looked like as well. So I think that really made that experience great. And by the way, we did, check with some of students, with some of our stakeholders, right? And they did say, hey, this was actually quite nice because some schools repeated participation from 2022 into 2023 as well. So like, this is quite seamless. And even our other partners, we had like a key sponsor for the event, right? They were also like, wow, this is quite good. So I think we managed to nail down the impact that we wanted by using Submit.com. And that whole contest management solution that is offered. So yeah, it did its job for us.
That's brilliant. So overall, it kind of enhanced the participants' experience as well as the administrators and the judges, which is
absolutely
what you came for, I suppose, at the first place.
Correct.
In terms of, I suppose, looking forward now, 2024, New Schools Challenge coming up. Using the Submit platform, have you may not have even thought of it yet internally, so forgive me for throwing this at you, but have you thought about different questions that you can now ask and maybe collect data that possibly you wouldn't have been able to collect on that Google Doc from 2022, and kind of push the boundaries to explore what else could you be using the Submit platform for? I don't know what your thoughts on that might be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, like you said, we are already kind of, this is in its this execution for this year is in its incubation box. But when I say incubation, I don't mean we're going to dwell on it. We'll definitely be executing it quite soon. But I think, Dee, for us, the expectation is that we want to continue using a platform which allows us to make this process, seamless, even for participants this year. But this time around, like I said, we enable it at an even earlier stage, so we don't wait, for submissions, but registrations are important. And then, even things like tracing down the schools where they're located, their geolocations, and then being able to use that info, because the registration stage is critical. If if you're unable to nail down where the schools are coming from, it's very hard for us to trigger those those actions at that level. Let's say there are like 16 states in Malaysia. I'll just take the Malaysian example for now, right? And we can see by the zip code and by the postcode, so zip code, where those states are and what those states are, right? So if we see that there's a certain state, for example, Kuala Lumpur, right? I mean, we get active participation from that, or from Johor, which is where we are located. That's the state. And then there are others which are further away, all the way up north, which is like 7-8 hours of drive time, which is quite far actually. So we want to make sure that those guys can also come in, right? So we kind of talk to the education officials, the district education officials for that state, saying, hey, we have noticed that, hey, like we are seeing lower participation from your district. How about we get some schools coming in? Because you see, for us, this is not we're not charging the schools, right? For us, there's no money, there's no gains involved. What we want to ensure is that this whole thing of being able to build with Lego in teams, and really unlocking that creativity, that innovation within those groups is actually enabled. So I mean, we really want more schools to take part, and we also want more schools to come to Legoland and also experience all the other things that are happening around the event when we actually launch it at our venue.
Yeah, very good. So from a growth perspective, how does collaborating with Submit influence your approach to similar projects, perhaps, in the future from Legoland Malaysia Resort's point of view? So we've got Schools Challenge. It could be, I suppose, used for a number of programs, I'd imagine. So that we can talk about that maybe another day in another phone call. But I do love that you guys are, I suppose, no pun intended, but the creativity and the flexibility of the platform is allowing you the freedom to do what you want to do and more. I think that's what we're getting from this more than anything. And that's the whole point, I suppose. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, just to add on, I think, like you said, there are definitely other applications of this, right? I mean, I mean, a lot of times we do things on our own social assets, social media platforms, where we ask people to engage with something, build something. I mean, that is, that's easier to manage because, you're working with hundreds and multiples of hundreds of entries, right? So you're looking at, I mean, you've got a few people to participate, and also that's manageable. I'm not saying that's an ideal perspective. I think even for social activations and contest activations on social platforms, there are solutions and there are ways of working around that. But I think it's also the amount of time you need to invest in creating that and having that. I think on Submit.com, to be honest, when we walked through the entire tutorial on what needs to be done, because the team did help us set up that basic skeleton, and then they also did a tutorial. So I think it was we had one session. I think it was like an hour and a half or something, and after that, I mean, the me and the other person in the team, we did manage to kind of put that up quite quickly. So I think the ease of setting up the contest or the campaign was actually quite simple as well. And then coming back to what I was saying, right? I mean, if there's a large scale, contest that requires maybe several stages, or a more, I would say, a more not complicated, but a more complex way of scoring things and all, I think this really works fine. And to be honest, Dee, we kind of considered this for another activation which we were doing recently. We are actually doing a hunt for. I mean, it's happening at the moment. It's called Model Builder for the Resort. So we're actually running that right now, but it's just that there were some things that we needed to figure out, and we had to go the more the more corporate route, which is we wanted the video to come to our email address and so on. So because it's an application for a job, right? I mean, it's the purpose is not just fun and play over there. But I can imagine that there are stages we could have unlocked in that. But I mean, it's fine. We'll have more opportunities to look at this in the future as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's there to be played with when you have it. That's the main thing with Submit. It's the flexibility to whatever department within the organization needs to use it. Again, everyone will have different wants and needs, which again, they have the freedom to do with the Submit platform. I suppose bringing it to a close then, the learnings compared to 2022 to 2023, you've doubled the amount of applications that have come in. Definitely this year, and I have to say, I've mentioned you, I've dropped your name once or twice on calls with people because I get asked the question all the time, how quick is the turnaround? And for some people, they've all the time in the world, and they're very. Other times, you could do a demo on a Friday evening, and you could be live the following week, the following Wednesday. So yeah. So I think yours was probably one of the fastest turnarounds I was ever involved with, but I'm delighted it worked out so well in the end. But this time we've got more time, 2024. And it'll be perfect for taking registrations this time round. You can create the profiles for the schools, have them saved on the domain, and then they can carry that through every year that they apply. They can simply use the same profile. Okay, so thank you. I'll bring it to a close. So anything else you want to add before I leave you go for the evening? Because I do appreciate you. It's quite late in Malaysia as we're recording this.
No worries. I think, I think just one more thing that maybe I forgot to mention in my excitement over the school challenge was also the judging process. I think in one of the lessons in 2022 was that, I mean, judging was, it was pretty, there were a lot of steps involved, right? I mean, the judges were sent, the links, and they had the files, and they had to review. So they had to switch back between looking at the entries and then, scoring them on a sheet. I mean, like, of course, an Excel file or, an online, like Google Sheets kind of, a solution, because not all the judges were physically there, right? So we had judges across because we wanted to get the best judges to kind of rate the entries, right? So in 2023, which is last year, when we had the Submit.com solution, right, we actually the judging platform and the judging capabilities also became quite strong because for the judges themselves, I mean, imagine, let's say for example, I mean, I'm not going to give real numbers here, but let's say a judge had to go through 30 entries or 50 entries. You're looking at 50 builds, which involves like a short intro to what the build is about, the theme, like a synopsis of sorts. And then you've got, a video, which was around 90 to 120 seconds. So, they go like 360 degrees around the model. They talk a bit about it. And then you have pictures as well, because not everything can be captured or seen as detailed in the video format, right? So the judges had to evaluate the entry, and for several things like, adherence to theme, innovative elements, Lego humor, those kind of things. So they had to see all of these things and then, see them in the images and video and then score it out, right? And then repeat it for, like multiple entries all over. So I think that was something that, I mean, we also got feedback from the judges, by the way. They were like, this was actually quite, I mean, it still involved work because they had to see each entry, but the way they were able to score, compare, go back, I think that was really helpful, right? Because I think that's really, to me, that's like the icing on the cake bit, right? I mean, because for us, yeah, we got the entries, we got the builds coming in great, but the credibility of the challenge also comes in from how we judge, how objectively we are scoring, and of course, making sure that we're doing justice to the entries. So we got that part ironed out. We had multiple judges. And like within the school challenge, we also had like a second round because we shortlisted, and then we had a second round of judging with a different set of judges, and that actually helped a lot because we were able to do everything within the platform. I didn't have to worry about, hey, I'll download this list and then I create a new list and then I send everything again. So within the platform, even the judging was divided into rounds. So just like how participation, could have gone through that registration had we enabled it last year, but the submission definitely went through. And judging also had 2 rounds, which was all on the platform. And you kind of just enable the judges, you put in their details, and yeah, they get a notification and they're through. So I mean, again, like I said, we're quite happy with the way this entire partnership has worked out. I think because it has really helped us make the contest, I would say, more sound, but then also making sure that the team has been able to, kind of use the time to, work more on the activation and the marketing part. So, I mean, for us as a marketing team, I think this is, this was great. I mean, I think in no ways did we, I would say that we faced challenges that we couldn't overcome. I think understanding the platform, working on the platform, making those changes, stopping, like submissions, enabling the submissions, adding judges, yeah, it was all done on the platform. So we didn't have to log anything outside, the Submit.com microsite that was created.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to go through everything with me. And it sounds like it's going to be even bigger and better again for 2024 for the schools challenge. You're going to be very busy. Okay, so I'll leave you go. Thank you very much, and we'll speak again very soon. Thank you, Suzanne.
All right. Thank you, Dee. Take care. All right.
Bye.